We're live.
All right, welcome everybody to House Energy and Digital Infrastructure. It is Tuesday, February 24th, and we are taking testimony on our committee bill 260781, an act relating to miscellaneous public utility subjects. And we are here today to hear from Peter Walk of Efficiency Vermont. And then as the afternoon goes on, we're going to get more feedback on this draft bill in hopes of wrapping up testimony so that we can vote it out. And then we're continuing to work on our data center bill in hopes that we'll vote that out. I'm Representative Kathleen James from Manchester.
Scott Campbell, St. Johnsbury. Tomorrow, Wyndham, Windsor, Bennington, Michael Southworth, Caledonia, Christopher Howland, Rutland 4, Sam Pletner, Chittenden 13, Burlington.
Laura Spilling, Wyndham.
Great. And in the room?
Matt Cotto, Meadowville.
Great.
Jonathan Wolf, from Piper on behalf of Burlington Electric.
Super.
Dana Lee Perry from the Craftsman Group.
Great.
Rich Bailey from Lamoille 2.
Awesome. All right. For the record.
For the record, I'm Peter Walk, Managing Director of Efficiency Vermont. I am trying to get into the Zoom, but that's mostly because I was logged into a different account before, and I'm trying to figure that out, but I will get on there.
Actually, that's okay. I just noticed that Rep Tori's here too. Dara, I know you are feeling unwell and didn't want to turn your camera on, but we see you, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, feel better.
Join just so I can share my testimony with you all. Just walk through. So thank you for having me and Madam Chair and members of the committee. Specifically, you asked me to come in and talk about your work in the draft committee bill around Energy Efficiency Modernization Act and the continuation of that work on behalf of Burlington Electric Department. Which we are very supportive of Burlington continuing to do that. I did listen to your testimony. There was some question about is there an equitable issue that we needed to address about expanding that statewide? I'm happy to provide a little bit of the history of our interaction with the Energy Efficiency Modernization Act program. There's been 2 iterations of it. It was a 3-year pilot in 2020, and we are in the second 3-year pilot ending at the end of this year. Efficiency Vermont has primarily run 2 programs through that process. One was dealer support in the electric vehicle space, helping with training, equipment, charging infrastructure at the dealers across the state who are interested. Essentially an extension of our contractor support network, right? Thinking of them as another purveyor of high efficient equipment. So work closely with the dealers in Matt Coda's network to get them ready for anything that they need. Because as Matt will tell you, the OEMs put the Fords and Chevys of the world put the requirements on the dealers, and the dealers have to supply the equipment, and it's expensive, and so any support we can give them helps move that market forward. But with where the market is right now in terms of the federal tax credits going away, state incentives drying up, the utility tier 3 incentives are kind of the only game in town right now. So the market is a little quieter than it was. And so we are not pursuing that program for the next 3-year performance period. The second program that we ran was called the Low Income Fuel Switch Program, which is a great collaboration with the WAPs, with the DUs, and with us. What happened is you got you're a low income Vermonter who had your home weatherized via one of the WAPs. You're then handed off to us to have a heat pump installed free of charge. If you needed a panel upgrade, that happened. Any sort of fixes along the way. And the DUs supported that through their tier 3 incentives. So we split that effort over the course of time. That has been very effective, and we're going to keep that program going using traditional regulated funding sources. So we did not feel it was necessary to continue the Energy Efficiency Modernization Act program. We're certainly supportive of BED doing that. And I think the fact that you've created sort of a separate piece of Green Book law or are going down that path is the right approach. So it's clear to everybody that it's BED specific. But we were given the opportunity in the last extension to both pursue another 3-year extension if we wanted to, but also to propose it as an alternative analysis as part of our demand resources plan. We chose not to, and have been communicating that to stakeholders all of last summer and fall. And so this sort of just kind of this testimony is just cement the fact that while it was been a great program and something that we've been happy with, where the market has gone, we're going to keep one program and move away from the other and feel pretty good about where that's going.
Was your hand up or?
I was not.
My hand was up. I thought we both went up at the same time. I have a question about the history. So there was a 3-year pilot, and then it was renewed for another 3 years.
Yes.
And you guys participated in like both of those rounds, I guess I'll say.
Yes, we did.
And my question was, the low income fuel switch and the EV dealership network program, were those two programs kind of the brainchild of the original legislation?
No.
Or this pilot program was created and you guys received a pot of money and it said, what do you guys want to do with it? Come up with some creative ideas?
It was a carve out of the existing energy efficiency charge dollars to be used for
other
things that primarily had a greenhouse gas benefit associated with them.
That's right.
It was a way to sort of test different options that were out there. There were a fair number of strings attached to it, so it wasn't, the easiest program to administer. But we were really happy with the outcome of the low income fuel switch program and think it's a really good one to get going. And as the EV market kind of changes and comes back over time, I think there's opportunities there, but for now we don't see a major need for Efficiency Vermont's involvement in that process. And as a reminder, VIC, our parent company, does run the Drive Electric Vermont program on behalf of the state, and so we are doing a fair amount of promotion and other things and education around electric vehicles that's separate from this program.
Okay. Back to where you were. Sorry about that.
Do you want to miss something?
Okay.
I just want to add more about using. You're going to be using EEC money then instead to support the fuel switch portion of this. Is that?
I think we're going to use a combination of EEC and TPF dollars.
Okay.
To make that work. Depending on how it works, I can provide some more information for you. But yeah, we believe we can do that. The thing about the program is it's very expensive on an individual unit basis. And so as a reminder, you all have asked us to be overall net cost effective at delivering energy efficiency. So every dollar we spend that is sort of underwater in that way, we need to make up from a very efficient investment elsewhere. And that's possible and important that we do that. But it is more expensive than other programs that we run.
So how are you budgeting for that program? Is it a certain number of units that you're budgeting?
Yeah, we sort of assess what the total budget is and then try to kind of back into what the calculation is. We have 5 years worth of data now to look at in terms of what's the average cost per install, how many of them need panel upgrades,
right.
This, that, and the other thing along the way. And so that's very useful to have that information in hand so that we can better.
Yeah, what I'm really getting at is what's the availability around the state for people to access this. This would be people who are getting services from the weatherization program.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's exactly the pipeline we've all talked about wanting to create, right? Mm-hmm. Weatherization,
yep.
Fuel switching,
yep.
Future proofing for other electric investments in the future.
Right. No,
it's a great program, and and if we had unlimited, if there were unlimited resources out there, I think we could do a lot of good work, but, we balance those things to make sure that we're providing net positive economic activity for the state.
Yeah, well, also it's a matter of uptake and how many people are willing to do that. And what are the causes that homes are going to sort of incorporate for it.
Yeah.
But I get that you're trying to get a sense of how that's distributed around the state. How many in the Northeast came from?
There were a lot of geographic or distribution requirements associated with EMS, and DU coordination requirements, and essentially in many ways we were beholden to the DUs in terms of what they had in terms of their tier 3 budget to invest. And so we very much balanced the geographic equity component and the DU territory equity component.
Yeah.
It's been pretty complicated to run in many ways, but it's important as we're trying to get more and more to folks who are, all over the state.
Could you share some of that information about sort of that program and what you're anticipating?
Sure. I'm happy to do that. I don't, it's probably, let me send you something on it, because probably not relevant to the purpose. For the purposes of the bill, I think you're doing the right thing by creating a carve out for BED. And we're supportive of that, and we're happy not to be in here asking for an extension of the program as it stands now.
Yeah, it's a side issue for what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, it's a great. I'm happy to provide more detail, and we've got all of that. I can tell you where it's all been, and where the installations have been by town and by DU territory and all that.
Fantastic. Thank you.
That's no problem. Madam Chair, if you wouldn't mind, I have a couple of comments on other bills you are working on.
Yeah, I thought
If
that
you
was the
don't
point.
mind.
No, I think that's,
So we won't have time for it.
So there are 3 other bills that I just would like to flag. In my testimony, I did provide some information on the data center bill. One of the things that we noticed that was missing, and I will apologize, I'm not sure if we matched this up with the comments from the Public Service Department or not, but I can go back and double check on that. Nowhere in there is mentioned the idea of creating energy efficient data centers. And though if we can get them in on the front end, then everybody saves a lot of money in the process, and we don't have to have as much power going into it. Seems like a no-brainer. Huge part of the load is cooling. And so how do we make that as efficient as possible? So a requirement to come into one of the relevant energy efficiency utilities seems appropriate to me.
Are you envisioning this in the intent language, or have you offered language?
We've offered language in the testimony that I submitted. There's some language in the equivalent, appropriate sections. What I do need to go back through and Representative Sibilia and double check that it, as you mentioned, aligned with where the Public Service Department's comments were, so that I can make sure that they're to go in the right place. But essentially it's two things. One, a simple requirement that that the creator of one of these data centers comes in and works through the appropriate energy efficiency opportunities with their appropriate energy efficiency utility, whether that's BED or us, or if it's a entirely thermal matter in VGS's territory, then VGS. And then the second piece was,
I just wanted to clarify, just so you know, I think you know, but the version of the bill that we posted with comments from DPS, those are just suggestions. That's not like the latest draft of the bill. Okay, so important to look at, but those are just suggestions from DPS that we're taking a look at.
Yeah, I think it was, to my question, it was more around like, if you were following along in that bill, the numbering might be challenging. And so I just want to make sure because I saw a lot of strike throughs in there. And so I'm happy to work with whomever to make sure it's in the right spot. The second piece is you've created several different programs for Vermont businesses to manage their own energy efficiency dollars. We're not sure that's appropriate for a new data center that comes in, right? The energy savings account program, or the SMEEP program that some folks are in, doesn't feel to me appropriate for a data center that's going to come in and use a significant amount electricity. So we would recommend that you exclude them from participation in that program, those programs.
Do you have a question? Then I have a question.
Oh, does that make these? So if we were to look at a Global Foundries model,
Mhm.
you are
We are
saying
that we don't think that's appropriate.
that Global Foundries model. would
Well, the
not-
Global Foundries is the Cadillac of this model, but there are similar models in the energy savings account program and the customer credit program that you made up to dates to, I believe, last year, that allow for businesses in Vermont to maintain control over a certain portion of their energy efficiency charge dollars.
So you want it on the front end, which is what you said before.
I think it makes sense, since these, these aren't businesses that are necessarily going to be in Vermont forever. Like, this is the Global Foundries, many of the ski areas, Omea, things like that, business that have had a long history in Vermont, are part of those programs. And that seems appropriate. But I'm not sure a data center that, is going to add significant load and has a shelf life, is the appropriate.
So let me just make sure, I think actually those other participants, we are supporting their kind of transformation, participation in the energy transformation. And I think what I'm hearing is that should not be necessary if they work with us on the front end.
Essentially, yes.
So then, sorry.
Go ahead.
So then they work with you on the front end. And they work with you on the front end. We figure out the power, purchasing agreements and the emissions, all of that. They would still pay the charge.
Mhm.
Okay.
As everybody else does, as major energy users in the state, they would pay the charge. Yes.
I just wanted to roll it through, make sure I had that.
Okay, and I needed to roll it back because you guys started at a level of talking about these programs, and I don't know what these programs are, so I should have gone first.
Sorry.
I'll interrupt more handily in the future. So what are we talking about?
There are 3 programs that the legislature has authorized over the course of time to allow Vermont businesses to retain control over the investments of their energy efficiency charge dollars. There's the self-managed energy efficiency program, which is the SMEEP, which is the kind of the Global Foundries model, which is much more full control of all of it, similar to how they're now a utility, right?
So I'm sorry. So they pay the efficiency charge, and then they retain those dollars, and they have to invest them in energy efficiency projects themselves. So it's like kind of like a circular thing. It's like, here's what you would be paying. You will not have to pay that, but you have to invest that much in your own.
Effectively, and
Did
there
I
are,
get that right?
Yep, and there are 2 other types of programs: the energy savings account program, which is somewhere you get to keep 75% of your overall energy efficiency charge, but you still get support from Efficiency Vermont or BED or wherever you are to be able to do the engineering work for your project. And then there's the customer credit program, which is 90% of the EC, and there are some distinctions there, but
Those are for big.
they're for the largest energy using businesses in the state have the opportunity to enroll in those. And I would say it's a mixed bag of whether they decide to or not. Many of them prefer to work with us on a more detailed basis because they may not have that expertise in-house. So there's different ways of looking at it. This is just a recommendation. You can take it or leave it, but it doesn't seem to me that, as we're worried about the sort of energy use coming online of these large data centers, that having them pay into the energy efficiency charge, which supports everybody's bills ultimately being lower through investment in efficiency across the board, seems more appropriate than creating carve-outs for them to invest themselves.
And just back to these programs for one sec. So for the big like ski resorts or OMIA or whatever, if they opt to do that, who has oversight over how they spend their dollars to make sure that it's being properly invested?
The
That you-
PUC and the Public Service Department still
Okay.
have the same sort of oversight, and they're required to submit plans and.
Showing what they've
Yeah,
done.
exactly.
Okay, thanks. I'm back up to speed.
Yeah. So there is oversight of it, but there's an equity question, frankly, in my mind, of letting solely the large energy users be able to reinvest their dollars directly. So that's one piece. So those would be our comments on the data center bill. I was
Can I have one more question on this?
yes.
Are there limits? Sorry. These other programs are self-managed, energy efficiency program, the energy savings account program, and customer credit. Are there limits on which businesses can participate and how many businesses can participate?
Yes. There. So I can send you the section of statute that details that, but it's, it has to be a user above a certain level, and there's a cap on how many people can, and how much monetary value can participate in that over the course of time.
Okay, great.
So that's so then there are two other bills that you're working on that I just wanted to quickly flag. The one is the appliance standard bill that is looking to sort of make sure that the federal standards that Vermont's been relying upon for the last several years remain in effect. It's a lot of a date extension. We are generally agnostic. I'll say that, one thing I want us all to be careful, these aren't new standards, but as you're thinking about potentially new standards at some point in the future, we run into issues sometimes on the back end of people actually being able to comply with those new standards and kind of leaving them hanging and expecting a transition is going to magically happen when it doesn't always. I'll give the example of fluorescent light bulbs. In 2020, you all banned fluorescent light bulbs because they contain mercury, and there was a desire to move away from those. That is an appropriate action on one level, but it left a lot of people with 4-foot fluorescent light bulbs holding the bag because that meant incentives went away because you raised the bar for code, and therefore we couldn't help them get into LEDs. And so the transition, it would have been better if we thought about the transition period and process more directly so that we could have helped people move faster in the direction away from those bulbs rather than be left with them and not being able to easily afford the transitions to LEDs.
So, I'm sorry. I didn't understand why the legislature's action prevented your supporting people in move to work with LEDs.
So once we have a new either appliance standard or a ban on the use of a less efficient technology, whatever is the replacement becomes the new standard. And so we can't incentivize anybody to move to a standard that's already, to a baseline that's already the baseline. And so we couldn't provide, we're phasing out the incentives for light bulbs as we speak now because of that ban, because you raised the floor.
You can only incentivize moving better than the standard.
Yep.
Got it.
So it's an unintended consequence of these types of things. This bill does not do that. Just would be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to flag that as you're thinking about it, to think about the transition for other pieces. And then the final one I'm going to just chat quickly about was Representative Campbell, your code enforcement bill. Very supportive of code enforcement. I would love to see the state do that work, as we've talked about many times. I don't think I have questions about whether municipalities are able to take that on, but I have more of a concern of the funding source because that is the limited funding that is supporting Vermont's thermal work. And so as we think about the Reggie funding and the forward capacity market funding, which is what feeds Efficiency Vermont and BD's thermal programs, we need, that funding is very limited. And there are a lot of draws on it. You've heard there's an article in Digger just the other day about heat pumps and the challenges with getting them to work as effectively as possible. We are working on a transition to a whole home heat pump program, but that's going to be a draw on resources, right? And those are the same funds that those things would come from. All of the moderate income and market rate weatherization programs, same pot of funding. And so I understand that it is a penny pinching year in this building. I'm simply not supportive of the use of those funds for that purpose. I think this is a state activity that the state should take on and has the expertise and knowledge to be able to do it. So I would encourage you to continue down that path. But so those are I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to go field a bit. But given that I haven't been with you all very much this year, I wanted to take advantage of the opportunity.
Well, just to react to your last point about using some Reggie thermal money for supporting code compliance. First of all, for context, as I understand it, there's something in excess of $8 million accumulated from the Reggie revenues in the last 3 years that were not expected. And that's a great thing to have a pot of money to put towards weatherization for the next 3 years. And through Efficiency Vermont and Vermont Gas and Burlington Electric. The bill in question, H 718, does seek to use about 5% of that money, $400,000 within the bill, to support creating more market incentives for builders and designers to learn more about access existing training opportunities, learn more about code compliance for the purposes of minimizing the need to retrofit buildings that they're building now in the future, and really ultimately to understand the dynamics that are involved when you're insulating and air sealing a building better than in the past. So that's the nexus, as I've explained before, between using that money for support weatherization after the fact for existing buildings, and in effect using the money to support weatherization before the fact, so that we're building buildings that don't need to be retrofitted in 10 years or something. So just again, to put that in context. I'm talking about that.
Very supportive of the overall effort to increase the level of code compliance, right?
Yeah.
However you get there. I think carrots and sticks are needed in that regard.
Yeah.
But given you mentioned the additional Reggie revenues, I will say this, that sort of we along with the Public Service Department kind of combined on a forecast that was very conservative in nature for the first couple years of Reggie prices going up significantly intentionally, so that we could make sure that it was real, and then develop the forecast. So we have near complete agreement over how to continue to spend those resources. So there may be a perception of a kitty somewhere, but that's part of the next 3-year plan for all to be spent. And direct agreement between the administration and Efficiency Vermont over the total of that funding. We're working out the details as always.
Understanding. Just wanted to take the counter argument as well.
Yeah. Without further ado, I can leave you to the rest of your business.
Great. Thank you so much for being here, Peter. Appreciate it. And our next testimony is not until 2. So maybe we could take a minute and talk about this week's agenda and crossover. So thanks so much, Director Walk.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Cool.
So Dara, are you still here?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. We've got a minute, so I thought we could take a few minutes and talk about this week's agenda, crossover, et cetera, et cetera. This is different from our committee experience last year because we have got a lot of bills that we've been taking a lot of testimony on, and they're all kind of I keep using the phrase, but they're all kind of circling the runway, and we don't have a whole lot of time left. So just to remind folks, I know everybody knows this, but crossover is Friday, March 13th for policy committees. So that is the last day for our committee to vote out any of our bills that we want to, meet the official crossover deadline. So the bills that are kind of queued up for between now and March 13th. So that's this week. And then we have town meeting break, obviously. And then we come back and we have that 1 week after we get back. So this committee bill, I feel like we're getting pretty close to a wrap. And we're trying to make sure. We had talked last week about who all do we need to hear from, and what testimony do we need to take before we can get this ready to vote out. So I took notes on everybody we needed to hear from and tried to get that scheduled basically for like today and tomorrow. And so this is scheduled for a vote on Thursday morning. And just to go back over last time we talked, we wanted to hear from DPS, and they're coming in this afternoon. We wanted to hear from Efficiency Vermont, and we just did. We wanted written testimony from Vermont Gas, and I wrote to them and requested that, and that's in our inboxes and were posted. Some folks wanted to hear from RPCs, and so we put out that request. And we have Janet Hurley coming in from the Land Use Review Board, and then we have the RPCs, 2 RPCs coming in tomorrow morning. And then just to be really thorough, I wrote to the to TCAB, and I asked them if they would please write us a letter asking to be disbanded. And they did. And did I send that to the full committee yet? Okay, so I will. TCAB, that's the poor board that's been trying to disband since 2021 and hasn't met. But instead of taking everybody else's word for it, I thought that we should perhaps hear directly from them. So if I didn't forward that, I will. They wrote to us and they want to be disbanded. So that's the committee bill. And that vote is scheduled for Thursday morning. So that's bill number 1. Okay. Data centers, 727. We're also trying to bring that down to the runway. So based on all the testimony we had taken and testimony requests from the committee and from the bill sponsor, Rep. Sibilia, we have a national expert on data centers and water use, right? Testifying this week. We wanted to hear from the Land Use Review Board, and they're coming in. And just a little note on that, we'll hear this directly from Janet, but Janet's going to come in and talk a little bit about, she's going to provide feedback on the bill as introduced. And then they are also taking a look at some of DPS's suggestions, because I think it's important. We have a lot of comments and ideas from DPS, and I want to make sure that we don't take a bunch of testimony from everybody, then change parts of the bill based on some ideas from DPS, and then have to get everybody back in. So Janet's aware of the DPS ideas. She has talked with TJ. She's going to bring this to her board. So we're going to be hearing from her again, I think, later this week on this bill. And then we have some of the environmental advocates coming in. TJ's coming in to talk about DPS's suggestions. Is that it?
Then we presumably then we would
A
have
draft.
a draft.
Yeah, so, but that's it for testimony, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're trying to wrap up all the testimony. Oh, and we have another water, the Lake Champlain Committee, a water protection advocate coming in later this week too. So the idea is to wrap up testimony this week, get everybody looking at all the different versions. Then that would give Rep. Sebelia some time over town meeting break to get us a draft for us that we can look at when we get back. Okay. So, so that is bill number 2. So that vote will be after we get back, but that's another one that I definitely feel like we can get done before crossover. 740 greenhouse gas. That is, we've taken all the foundational testimony we need. We have some written testimony coming in. I sent a letter to the committee today from Suburban Propane. That's posted. And I have been working with the Agency of Natural Resources to make sure that they are supportive of the language, because I think it's really important that A&R be on board with the language that we're proposing. So I should have a draft ready to post tomorrow, I hope. And I'll send that out to the committee. We'll get it posted. And I have not scheduled that vote yet. I didn't know how long the second draft was going to take. It's not that different from the first draft.
You have a vote scheduled on Thursday for 7:40.
And that vote is scheduled on Thursday. This week. So that's bill number 3. Bill number 4. All right, that was 3. Okay. The Joint Carbon Emissions Reduction Committee. I think we walked through that. I think that we agreed as a committee that I think the idea here, and I can't remember if we had this conversation with Ellen in our committee discussion. I think we did, was that we probably do want to, as a committee, revise the statutory language to update it, get ourselves on there, for example. Maybe have a talk about whether we have the right amount of members, talk about the number of meetings. And so I think we talked about updating that statute as sort of permanent ongoing language, and then maybe having a session law provision if we're interested in being like a little bit more directive about what we might want the committee to work on over this summer and fall, with some kind of report due back in December. I checked in with Director Poor about this yesterday, because we were curious about how this work would intersect, support, clash, fit with the ongoing work of the Department of the Comprehensive Energy Plan. And he is going to talk to us about that. Tomorrow. No, tomorrow. So when he's coming in at 2:00 tomorrow to talk about the Comprehensive Energy Plan, he's going to go over some of their key recommendations. And he now has the heads up that we're curious about how this might fit or not fit with this idea we're kicking around. I sent him the link so he could look at the Joint Carbon Emissions Reduction Committee. I told him about the session law idea. And we talked a little bit about what the capacity of that committee would be, like if there's 6 meetings, how we are probably going to have to be really focused about giving them one, a doable thing to do. So TJ is coming in to talk about that. And then I think I scheduled a discussion of that at 2:00 on Thursday. And that would be when we really mark up the bill and try to hammer this out. That's bill number 4. Then we have net metering, H716. And as promised, I know Rep. Morrow was working on an amended draft. And we scheduled a final round of testimony based on everybody's suggestions about who we would need to hear from on draft 2. So Chris, do you have an update on that?
Ellen got me that this morning. I forwarded it to Alex. And yeah, and it's just what we talked about at the end of last session.
Okay.
Took out the negative adjuster and added language on things that PUC should consider
Okay.
when they do their next round of adjusting. Left the behind the meter as was, and added a little battery storage combined with solar chunk.
Okay.
So it's 3 elements.
Okay. Do you want, is it ready to and send around and all that, or is it not quite signed off?
I think she considers there's one statutory language question, but I think in terms of
Getting it out there?
getting it out there and understanding what it is, it's fine.
Okay. So Alex, you can post that and send it to the committee. I just didn't want to jump the gun, Chris.
Yeah, I should have that.
Okay.
Where will that be posted? On
our website.
Oh, just,
In the H716 folder, and Alex will probably just send it to the whole committee. Disconnects. 753. Dara, I know you have also been diligently working to try to get this kind of streamlined and pulled together. And what do you think?
Yeah, I think that I could use, I have a couple more people to get some feedback from. If there's still a little opening on Friday for witness time,
I left Friday open until we could have this conversation.
Perfect. Okay.
Friday afternoon could be last testimony on bills and maybe even another vote. I don't know.
Okay. Well, that'd be great because there's a couple witnesses that with hearing from the department and the PUC. And then I would, depending on that, how that goes, I would proceed with a new draft over the break as well.
Great. So can you send the suggested witnesses to me and Alex?
Will
We'll
do.
see if they can come in Friday afternoon.
Yep.
Okay, 6, 7, residential energy code. So a couple things on 718. This bill has an interesting journey ahead of it. So House General and Housing wants to do a flyby, and they have time this Thursday and Friday. So that means we don't vote it out. They don't take possession. What they need from us is basically final language. You know, not like, oh, we're still working on this and that and this and that and this and that, but like something very close to what we think we're going to be voting on. And how that works is, and we've also never done one of these before. So how that works is that Scott will have a draft. We should probably find time to show that to the committee first, because you said it's not much different from the one you walked through.
Right. I think there might be a couple of tweaks.
Okay.
One is to take out the general fund appropriation, since there is money in there from the regional greenhouse gas initiative revenues, despite efficiency Vermont's not being supportive of that. It is the legislature's responsibility to appropriate money. And one other minor tweak, I think, will be in how the $200,000 dedicated to or allocated to office professional regulation, how that's described. Right now, it seems to imply that OPR has to set up a website, and they don't want to be required to do that. So the intention was to have it go to support the task force to get a website, to decide how to get the website improved. So I'll try to come up with some clarifying language on that.
Okay, so when do you think we could have just a quick walkthrough as a committee before we send it off?
Well,
Like,
I guess ideally Wednesday if there's time, or
how long do you think Dr. Wren? Well,
30 minutes.
30 minutes? Could you do it at 1:30 tomorrow?
say yes.
Okay. So how this works, guys, is that Scott will show us, what he has. And then we don't vote. He'll go over, he'll basically walk it across the hall and walk House General through it. And then they'll take a look at it and they'll get back to us with either this looks great, or did you think about this? Or, we recommend this. And then we take that under consideration, and Scott would have over break to work on a draft. And then that bill will have to go to approps also. And then I neglected to mention that H740, the greenhouse gas bill, that also has to go to approps. So when we vote it out here, its next stop would not be the floor. It would go to approps to meet its funding fate, whatever that may be. And, sometimes approps will strip out the money and vote on it and send it to the floor, or sometimes it will just hang there. So we don't really know. But that is definitely the next critical stop for that bill. So that is a lot. And we're just going to have to keep cracking on. All right. So if you guys have any questions about that, catch me anytime. But that is, that's what we're trying to do. And we can go off live. Oh yeah, Rep. Sebelia.
Well, next, when we come back after town meeting break, what are the floor times?
I think it's moving to 1.
I moved to 1 on the week of the 17th.
So not,
So it's the week
good.
after.
Great. It's not moving to 1. That's good. And that week after town meeting break, we've not had to do this as a committee, but we very well might have to. We might have to have some long days and do a vote-o-rama or something. So I would just be ready that week to. We'll stay in touch about the agenda, but we might start early one morning, or we might go late, or, come back after floor, or whatever it is we need to do to make sure that all of these bills come to their natural conclusion.